And you're welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. Still iBrand Daybreak. Moving on to the next conversation. The Nigerian Bar Association, the NBA, has advised the Attorney-General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Lateef Fagbemi, to immediately prioritize reforms in Nigeria's justice system. President of the association, Yakubu Meikau, gave the charge after meeting with President Bola Tinubu at the State House, Abuja. Of course, Yakubu said the areas mostly in need of attention would be issues like outdated salaries for judicial officers and lengthy court processes. The NBA president, who described Fagbemi's appointment as a perfect fit for the role, expressed optimism while urging collaboration between the legal community and the government. To further have this conversation with us is Barrister Olajide Ologun. He is a legal practitioner. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here.
All right. Let us start with the president's speech, which I must say I was very surprised at, because in the years past, most presidents starting the conference for the NBA usually would say, keep up justice, be good at your job, do not be corrupt. But he started with saying things like, you know, having, investing in promotion for what creation, and of course, all the things that need to be done better for legal practitioners and lawyers in the country. Do you see this as a step towards finally listening to, you know, all the agitations from the legal arm of our government, from the judiciary? Is it a point where we finally see the government paying attention and paying lawyers and judges what they deserve?
Hopefully, you know, because it's just an expression for now, and until we begin to see the implementation, then we can now say finally. So there had been several calls in the past for reforms. There had been some, but what is the impact on the society? Because when you talk about reform, it means you are enhancing the effectiveness of a procedure, of a system, you know, and what we say in law is that justice should not only be done, but clearly seem to have been done. And there are things you need to ensure that in this contemporary time, you talk about technical support. Not long ago, the Supreme Court justices, you know, came out expressing their bitterness about the fact that they didn't even have a robust access to internet, you know, engagement as Supreme Court justices. So, and they came up with allegations of corruption at that level. So, and it has to do also with remuneration. You look at a country like Singapore. One of the things Lee Kuan Yew did was to ensure that those representing the people within the government circle were well paid, because that was one of his own approaches at fighting corruption. So if I'm paying you very well and you lay your finger on corruption, you expect me to come at you hardly. You see, then we talk about the workload, the infrastructure. I was in a court in Ikeja, and I pitied the lady on the bench, which was terrible, you know, no electricity, and she moved on. And I was asking myself, even though you find batteries connected to inverters, for how long will those batteries run? You know, so these are issues: infrastructure, the remuneration, the need for concentration. You know, you know, when you talk about the judiciary, particularly the judges and those who are at the bench, they are expected to focus. In the olden days, you hardly find them in social gatherings. So you are expected to concentrate, because the issue of justice is you must look deeply into issues without bias. But today, can we say that, can we just ask a question, that how many judges and justices do not have side businesses to make ends meet? These are challenges. So How do you concentrate? How do you focus? And I think that is an issue right now that the government should look at. Definitely.
I believe that that is part of course, the reforms that have been clamoring for. Still talking about the president's speech at the conference, he did mention that, you know, a world class of remuneration will help to sanitize the judiciary. And I'm more concerned about that word, sanitize. Is this him alluding to the fact that, you know, poor remuneration has, you know, kind of played a role to the level of corruption that we've seen in the judiciary in the past? Do you agree with that?
I'm not sure he's alluding to that. When you talk about reform itself, it's about sanitization. If things are working well, you don't need to reform. So when you form and what you have formed becomes deformed, then you need to reform. And reform upwardly so that you can be more effective. And for example, look at what we attempted to do, the redesigning of our currency and the cash swap. Beautiful idea, but the supportive exactly, you know, machinery to make it effective was not there. So it landed us in a very serious negative crisis. And when you are talking about world-class remuneration, you are addressing the micro aspect of these concerns. Because let's even assume you pay the justices like 8 million naira per month, for instance, or even 10 million naira per month. This justice has relations that cannot pay their children's school fees, is in the social system. We still have a dependent economy that is putting pressure on some of these officials. And they must attend to it because we live in communal stance in this part of the world. So I think right now it's time for Nigeria to sit down and look at an enabling environment where even if the justice earns let's assume 2 million naira per month, it can be comfortable with that 2 million. How do we bring down the rate of inflation? How do we bring down the unemployment in the nation? How do we stabilize the security environment? Because if you look at section 14 subsection 2 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended, it says that the security and the welfare of the citizens shall be the primary purpose of government. So whether you are a justice or medical doctor or teacher or House of Assemblyman, we are all citizens of this country. And so that promise to the judiciary is welcome, but you also need to consider the macro factors. For instance, the labor is asking for a new minimum wage. Let's assume that we come up with a new minimum wage of 200,000 naira. So what happens to the market? So the market woman reads about that in the news or hears through iBrandTV, and then the next thing is that one tomato is now 2,000 naira. So we need to create commonwealth for common good. And then you may also be surprised that maybe if the president attends the conference of HR practitioners, he will also promise to, you know, so let's go beyond this. Let's look at countries who have achieved it. In the United States of America, for instance, I think the U.S. Supreme Court handles about 7% of the cases that our Supreme Court handles in a year. And yet, we don't even have enough justice at our Supreme Court. So you need to look at all this. And look at the UK system, for instance. Look at the case of Ekwere Madu. Committed judiciary. That case didn't last for more than about 6 weeks. And a statement was made. They came up to the verdict. And of course, we say that in the criminal justice ecosystem, you need thorough investigation, you need diligent prosecution, and you need a committed judiciary. So it's not just about the judiciary. So before they were arrested, the investigation was intact. Look at the case of Emefiele. We are still searching around for elements of investigation and things like that. So it's beyond the judiciary.